This is a 718 Cayman GTS, and this is a 718 Boxster GTS. Today we're going to talk about which one you should get for your next car. We have two very similar looking cars here. We have two gentian blue 718s. However, these are wildly different from each other in many different ways, and today we're going to talk about the difference between them and what you should be looking for when you go buy your next Porsche. Now, for those of you that don't know, these are gentian blue 718s, and the 718 is the mid-engine Porsche platform, and it is arguably one of the better Porsches that you can buy today. The mid-engine Porsches started way back, all the way at the 914, but it went away and they shifted mainly to rear-engine 911s all the way until the early 2000s, late 90s, when the 986 and 987 Boxsters came out. Originally, when the mid-engines came back in the late 90s, early 2000s, they were only offered in the Boxster, which is the convertible version of the mid-engine Porsche. But the track enthusiasts and Porsche enthusiasts raved and said, give us a hardtop version. And so their answer was the Cayman, which basically just took the Boxster platform and added a hardtop roof to it. Since then, there have been multiple iterations all the way to the present day 718s. So which should you buy for your next car? Now, thanks to HCC Specialty Cars here in Dallas, they have provided us with this 718 Cayman, while we have the 718 Boxster here on the channel. So let's go ahead and get into some of the differences between the two and which car best suits you. Let's get into it. So starting here at the Cayman, this is a gentian blue Cayman. Gentian blue is one of my favorite Porsche colors. It's their dark blue and it looks absolutely immaculate. A lot of the 911s and other versions of Porsches, they don't actually have this as a more standard option. You have to go for a paint to sample plus color to get the gentian blue. But on the Caymans and the Boxsters, you can get it for, I believe, just a little extra money. I want to say it's like $600 to $1,000 to get the gentian blue. So it is more of a rare color, but if you see one in this color, this is, in my opinion, the absolute best color you can get it in. Now, this does have the PDLS headlights. That these are dynamic headlights that as you turn the wheel, they look back and forth. Both the Boxster has these headlights and the Cayman has an option for these headlights as well. So if you're looking for this car, those headlights are an amazing option. However, with them being dynamic headlights, they are way more expensive to replace. Any Porsche part is going to be expensive, but PDLS and PDLS Plus headlights that are dynamic and look in the direction that you're turning the wheel are going to be more expensive to replace later down the line. So it's a factor to consider. Now, as you can see, these look almost identical on the front end, and they pretty much are identical. Really, the main difference between the platform is the hardtop versus the convertible. But we're gonna touch a little more on that later. For now, let's go ahead and focus on the front of the car and the differences here and some of the options that you can get. Now, while these look very similar, they are wildly different optioned cars, which is a really unique opportunity that we have here. This one has the thin spoke two-tone wheels, whereas this one has the larger spoke black wheels. So I believe that these are a little bit more money, I want to say. So this is a little higher optioned wheel option than this. They do have the same brakes. I believe you can get a carbon ceramic option. The way that you can tell that they're carbon ceramic brakes is instead of a red caliper, you get a yellow caliper with some larger rotors as well. Now, under the hood of these cars, since they are mid-engine, you do get a front trunk. Now, there's not much difference in the space between these front trunks, but there is something that you can look for when you're buying these cars. This one has this protective liner you see right here. That is an extra option that you can add from Porsche. This one does not have that liner. Instead, it's just bare bones, the carpet that you would normally get from factory. Now, other than that, these are pretty much identical in both capacity and layout. So both of these look identical under the front of the hoods. Now, pro tip, if you do buy one of these things, you don't slam the hood. You never slam the hood of a Porsche. You set it down and then you press open palm on the emblem and shut it. That will prevent it from bending the hood. Now, moving back further along the car, again, they are pretty identical all the way to the interior here. Now, the interior of this car is way more optioned than the interior of the Cayman, which I'll show you here in a minute. For example, this one has carbon options in the door sill, along the doors, and along the cup holder here. With that, it's got the red seat belts, the red stitching in the seats, and then the two component leather Alcantara seats as well. These are the 18-way adjustable seats. These do come with multiple seat options. They come with a full carbon bucket, or you can get the 18-way or the standard seats. Now also inside this one, you can see this is a manual transmission. Now the Cayman is a PDK. So this we're going to talk about here in a minute, and there are certain conditions where you might want a manual instead of the PDK, and some where you'd rather have the PDK rather than the manual. Also in this one, you get the red gauge face and the Alcantara wrap steering wheel, and this is also a heated steering wheel as well. You get multiple different modes as in both cars. You get a sport mode, a normal mode, a sport plus mode, and an individual customizable mode. This one has the active rear spoiler, the active exhaust, and then since this one is a Boxster, you get the convertible controls as well. Now with this being a GTS rather than the Spider, it is an electric convertible soft top. The Spider, in the Spider RS, it is a manual convertible soft top. In order to put those up and down, you actually have to get out of the car and manually put it down on both sides. So if it starts raining on you in traffic or at a stoplight, you have to hop out of your car and put the top down. If you want a little more convenience and you are sold on the convertible, then you're gonna probably want a GTS with the 4.0 engine. That means you get a 4.0 liter flat six with the electric hardtop. Now both of these cars come in both a 4-cylinder and a 6-cylinder. It is a 4-cylinder turbo or the 6-cylinder naturally aspirated. Now in my opinion, if you're buying a Porsche, you're buying it for a 6-cylinder. These things are incredible engines. The power delivery is phenomenal. These, with the power to weight ratio, compete very well with 911s for a slightly less of a price point. And the fact that you can get them in both a manual and a PDK is a huge selling point for me. These cars are way more nimble than the 911s. The 911s are beefier, heavier cars. I would say that they're more grand tour cars and track weapons rather than a fun throw around proper sports car, which is what I would consider these two to be. Now we talked a little about the interior of the Boxster. Now what makes the Cayman interior so different? Overall, the layout is pretty much identical between the Boxster and the Cayman, but the big differences are the options between these two cars, and I really want to highlight some of those options. Now, like I said, you have the Alcantara and leather seats on that one. This one, you have the perforated leather full seats. These are also the 18-way adjustable seats as well. Now, in the middle console here, you have pretty much the same options. You have the wing and you have the exhaust button. The only thing you don't have is that convertible option, this being a Cayman. Now, some other options inside this interior that we have on this car rather than the other one. This has the leather steering wheel with the white gauge faces. Both of them have this chronometer here, or clock, that allows you to track lap times, or it functions as a clock as well. Now inside this does have the embroidered Porsche logo rather than the GTS logo up there, even though this is a GTS. In the door sills, instead of saying Boxster, obviously it will say Cayman, and these are brushed aluminum rather than the carbon fiber. Along that note, in this interior, there are very little, actually no carbon fiber options. Along the door sills, it is all the standard door sill material. The cup holder and then the center console, there's no carbon fiber anywhere to be found on this car. So if you're a fan of carbon fiber, be sure to be looking out for those options because there are plenty of carbon fiber options for this car. However, if you want something a little more simple and a little more subdued, this might be the car for you because it doesn't come with all the bells and whistles that you get on that interior package. Plus, a bonus to that is if you have one without all the carbon fiber options, you're probably going to be saving a few bucks, which is a huge factor to consider, these being $100,000 cars or more. Now moving back out of the car, these are both two-seaters. Even though this is a hard top, you still only get 2 seats, and there's a reason for that. These are very small cars. As you can see, in the back of this car, it is kind of a rear hatch shape. As we open this up, you do get a little bit of trunk space here. This does have this protective liner like in the front, while the Boxster does not. One of the slight benefits to owning a Cayman over a Boxster is you do get this little shelf of storage space over the engine here, which is normally where the soft top would go on the Boxster. Now, you're not going to be putting a whole bunch there. You're not going to be moving with this car, but you can throw a couple of jackets or throw some small stuff up there, and it gives you just a little extra storage space. The thing that really impresses me about both of these cars is how much storage space they actually have. Because they're mid-engine and not rear engine like the 911s, they have both a front trunk and a rear trunk. Both of these cars do, even though that is a convertible. Now you would think, since the convertible top takes up so much space, you would lose some amount of trunk space here, but really that's not true, and let me go show you why. Now, inside the trunk, as you can see, it's very similar to the Cayman. The big difference is you just don't have that rear hatch area. However, this is same dimensionally as that interior trunk piece on the Cayman. So while this doesn't have that protective liner right here, you do have about the same amount of space either way. The big bonus to the Cayman is it is a hard top, so if you're doing any track driving, it's gonna have a lot more chassis rigidity. Now, on the back of this car, I do wanna point out a couple of different things. As you can see, the 718 Boxster GTS right here is blacked out badging, which is an option. However, the Porsche badge on this is also blacked out. On the Cayman, it is not, and that is an extra option. I think the blacked out badging is a really cool option. It is an extra couple $100, so it's another thing to consider if you're buying one of these cars, used or new. Look for what options it has. Another option that this has is the clear taillights, as does the Cayman. It also has these clear taillights. The clear taillights is a really cool option that not many people really do. They think, oh, I don't need clear taillights. But especially if you're buying a really cool color car like the Gentian Blue, the clear taillights really make it just that much better. So I definitely think it's an option worth paying for if you're speccing one new, or if you're looking for a used one, look for those clear taillights. But as you can see, I do want to point out that this does have the black Cayman badging here, but the Porsche badging here is silver. So it is something that you want to look for. It's not a deal killer, I would say, but it is an option that Porsche offered. Another thing that I want to point out, if you are looking at these cars from afar and you want to be able to identify whether it's the 4-cylinder or the 6-cylinder, a quick way that you can tell is the exhaust. As you can see on the 6-cylinder here, it has two exhausts about 2 feet apart on the rear bumper. The 4-cylinders have a single exit center exhaust. So if it's a 4-cylinder, it's going to have that center exit. If it is a 6-cylinder, it will have these separate exits, especially with the GTSs. Now that is one improvement that I think could be made by owners after the fact. Is these sound pretty good, but they don't sound as good as the previous gen 981 Boxsters and Caymans, and that's because they have new emissions requirements in Germany that these cars had to meet. So if you're looking for a really crazy sounding exhaust, you either need to modify these cars or you need to get a previous gen 2016 Boxster or Cayman. Now, if one of these does have a modified exhaust, I wouldn't say that's a deal killer. Usually heavily modified cars, especially when it comes to Porsche, it's kind of a red flag. It either means it's been driven hard or maybe the modification wasn't done well. But if it has over axle pipes on the exhaust and that's about it, it is still a stock tune and otherwise stock, I think that that's actually, in my opinion, add value to the car because it's deleting a restrictive component on the exhaust that is only required in Germany, not here in the United States. So just a factor to consider when buying these cars. I wouldn't kill the deal over modified over axle pipes on either a Cayman or a Boxster of the 718 generation. So which should you get? If you want a fun weekend car, I would get a Boxster with the manual transmission. The manual in this car, and it's a very long geared manual. If you want to roll up and down through gears, you can do that with this car, but if you're going to be redlining it all the way through second gear, by the time you get to the red line in second gear, you're going about 75, 80 miles an hour, and you've broken the speed limit almost anywhere here in the United States. Now, with that being said, this is still a very fun car. You can still roam up and down through the gears. In Sport and Sport Plus mode, you get auto blip downshifting, so you don't need to do as much work as compared to others. However, if you still want to auto blip yourself to manually rev match, you can do that in the non-sport mode or in the individual mode that you set that I mentioned earlier. Now, let's say that you're driving it more than just on the weekends, but you still want a convertible. Maybe you want to start looking at the PDK. If you're going through more city traffic, maybe an automatic with one of the fastest, most glorious automatics you could possibly buy, the Porsche Doppelclutch. Now, this car is a manual, which is kind of why we got it. It is a fun weekend car with the manual transmission. This car does have the PDK though. Inside this car, it does have the paddle shifters, and this is what I would buy if you want to have a fun daily driver into more track driving, track weapon area. The PDK is one of the fastest shifting dual clutch transmissions, or just transmissions that exist in general. It shifts faster than you can think about shifting, which is just incredible. Porsche has put some special magic into their PDK transmissions. So if you want a fun track car, you get extra chassis rigidity with the hard top over the soft top. It's gonna be a little easier to throw into corners and to kind of keep stable through a more aggressive driving scenario. Pair that with that fast shifting PDK, you can really set some monster lap times, and then you can just drive it home from the track because this is a Porsche. It is built for this, and it is very comfortable to drive on the street as well. Both of these do have active suspension, so you can actually stiffen or soften the suspension depending on what type of driving you're doing. So if you are driving to the track, you can drive with more cushy suspension, where if you're driving on the track, you can hit that track button and open up the exhaust and stiffen that suspension. Both of these do have a little bit of active aero as well. In the rear, they have a wing that pops up. I think it manually, you can hit a button and pop it up, but at 80 miles an hour, it will come up automatically. So you do get that with both cars, and I believe you get that with no matter what trim you get, rather the 4-cylinder or the 6-cylinder. Now, if you are looking at buying either a Cayman or a Boxster, personally, I would highly recommend, if you can afford it, to get the 6-cylinder. The 6-cylinder is what Porsches are known for. Now, I will say I'm somewhat impressed by the Porsche Flat 4 with the turbo engine, but to me it kind of feels like an expensive Subaru at that point. Yes, you're getting that mid-engine feel, you're getting the Porsche feel, but it's not the same experience as these 4-liter flat 6s. If you guys have an ability to go test drive one of these things, it's totally worth it. And I'd highly recommend looking at both the PDK and the manual, the Cayman and the Boxster, because these are both incredible cars. But it really is up to you on which one you want to buy and what you're doing with it. If you're going for more track day stuff, maybe go with the Cayman. If you're going for more weekend drive with the wife, then this might be something that you want to get instead. So which should you buy? Should you buy a Cayman or a Boxster? And really that falls to you. Do you want a more fun track day car, or do you want more of a weekend car that you just want to roll up and down through the gears with? Either way, these are both great cars, and I highly recommend going and test driving them if you get the chance. This one is for sale here at HCC Specialty Cars in Dallas, so if you guys want to come check this thing out, be sure to check them out in the description down below. I think you're going to love this car, and personally, I would buy it if we didn't already have this Boxster. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're not already, be sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss any of the Porsche content or any of the other car content that we make here soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye. Ready? Fuck. That was not satisfying at all.